You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
Well, thank you for joining me on this Thursday, June 16th. My name is Julio Rivera. This is the Julio Rivera Show, hashtag Conservarican. Big show we have this week. I'm happy to have you all tuning in, whether you're listening through Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, whatever format that you join us through tonight. Kind of a sobering state of affairs, considering the horrific tragedy this past weekend in Orlando, Florida, affecting over 100 families in one way, shape, or form, and a community enduring a really difficult time right now. I hope we're all saying prayers. Whether or not if you have the means to, please donate to the organizations right now that are either collecting funds for the family, for the deceased, for the funerals and whatnot. One of the more shocking terrorist attacks that we've had, and listen, with the refugee resettlement, and I know that this particular situation, it wasn't a refugee, but we've seen kind of the normalization of this type of action, and unfortunately, but one of the things actually that I did want to just make mention of before we get into the show. Actually, I was very surprised and somewhat proud to see that the LGBT community kind of rallying around the Second Amendment. I think that some liberals are finally, it's starting to seep into their heads. They're starting to finally get it, that we need to be able to defend ourselves against radicals. You're not always going to have the time to pick up the phone and call 911 and depend on police to get there, although, police do as good a job as they possibly can. You can't subscribe to the idiot logic of Dianne Feinstein, if you don't have a gun and the gunman sees that no one else has a gun, that they're going to put down their gun and turn themselves in. It just does not work that way when you're dealing with a horrific opponent, and it's really a global jihad is what's being waged right now against America, against the countries in Europe, anywhere that they can cause disorder. I mean, they strap bombs onto themselves and they kill themselves. They kill fellow Muslims. They've been killing and it's been a genocide with Christians in the Middle East for years. It's underreported by the media. The liberal media doesn't want to bring it to the forefront. Unfortunately, they'd rather politicize these types of events as an excuse to try to justify their attacks on the Second Amendment. But, something to think about there. And I just want to get into, we have a great show this evening. I had actually the opportunity to interview an American hero that actually was stationed out in the Middle East, worked as a breacher, and he's actually part of a wonderful foundation by the name of Warrior Angels. His name is Andrew Marr. I interviewed him, and that'll be coming up at the end of the show, probably at about the 10:40 hour. We're also speaking with a great guest, Senator Ted Harvey of Colorado, who's the chairman of Stop Hillary PAC, and we have a lot of questions for him regarding exactly how to stop Hillary, which is the $64,000 question this election season, as she seems to be the presumptive and obviously the eventual nominated Democrat that's going to be on the national ticket. But our first guest, a very interesting gentleman. I actually had the opportunity to connect with him through social media. He's running as an independent in Virginia for Congress. I think the down ticket is very important this year, especially as we're transitioning from an 8-year term for the horror show known as Barack Hussein Obama. Right now the Republicans do have control of the House. They actually have control of the Senate, although a lot of people consider that to be in jeopardy. But my guest right now, and good evening to you, Mr. Major Michael Webb. How are you today? Fantastic. It's great to have you on the show. You sent me some interesting information. I'm a conservative, a constitutional conservative. I read up on you, and you are as well. And, now with what we're going through, as far as the nation kind of being under attack, I mean, whether the media wants to portray it that way or not, we are under attack. It's happening little by little. We saw it in San Bernardino recently. We saw it last weekend, and it was horrific. But there's actually an initiative, a piece of legislation that you're trying to get passed if you win your congressional seat, and that's known as the Sentinel program. Why don't you tell us a little bit of that to start off? Okay. Okay, that sounds fantastic. I actually was just made aware that we're having actually technical difficulties. We're having a problem actually hearing you. So I'm trying to figure out that real quick. If you could just give me 1 second to bear with me. I actually do apologize for that severely. That usually it's never been an issue here. But let me just see if I can figure out exactly. Can you just give me like a little bit of a... All right. Yeah, if you could just give me... can you speak for a second? Okay, yeah. There you go. We got him on now, I believe. Yeah. It sounds like I think we have you on, so I hope so. Let me see what we have here. Yeah, so let's move on, actually. That's unfortunate because you gave such a great answer. And let me just make sure that we do have you. Can you just go ahead and just give me a test real quick? No, yeah, actually, you're still not on. I don't know what happened here. Yeah, I apologize for that. No, I don't think that that's exactly the issue. I think it's an internal software issue. Let me just see if there's something that I can do to, let me see here, VB. Go ahead. No, that's not it either. VB. VB. I think this might be it. Go ahead. Yeah, no, we're not. I don't know what is going on. Sorry about that. Hold on. One more time. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Listen, I do apologize for that. You know what, Mr. Webb? I completely am at a loss. I have no idea why this is actually happening this way. This is the first time this has ever happened on a broadcast. So I gotta actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to call you back and see if I can get this clean. And in the interim, I'm just gonna go ahead and play the Andrew Marr interview out of sequence until I can figure out what's going on. Thank you so much, though. I'll be back with you. Thank you. Okay, well, that's embarrassing. But you know it happens. And let me tell you something, guys. If you've ever tried to simultaneously produce, write a book, and perform a show, unfortunately, sometimes balls get dropped. And I don't know exactly what happened. I did not change any of my settings, so I can't actually answer to what occurred here. But for some reason, we are having a technical issue right now, unfortunately. There isn't really anything I can do about that, but I wanted to expand and actually discuss a little bit about what Mr. Webb was talking about with the Sentinel program. Actually, what his idea is to actually use American resources, basically veterans, American heroes that have experience with a gun, with using a 9mm, in order to keep America safe and actually find a use for their skill set. And I'm going to give you a little bit more specific information. He actually waxed poetic about it for the duration of an interview that unfortunately you couldn't hear. And you know what's hilarious? That's happened to me twice. That did happen to me, I believe, when I did my old show when I was still on We Are America Radio, and I had Steve Malzberg on, and I was so excited. I was like, I've got Steve Malzberg on my show to talk sports. His audio didn't come in. So, and now, with Mr. Webb, it didn't come in either. And, but things happen sometimes that way. But just, I'm going to give you the information that I have here regarding, and it's Mike Webb for Congress. And I, again, sincerely apologize, Mike, if you're listening. I'm sorry. I don't know how we're going to handle Ted Harvey because I can't seem to figure out exactly what the issue is. We may have to push that one along, actually, maybe to next week, unfortunately. I'm kind of in a weird position here. I'm just sitting here kind of rambling on, looking for something through my phone here so I can give you some more information. And here it is, the Sentinel program. Mike Webb, if he is elected in Virginia as a congressman, is pushing for the Sentinel program. And this is the information on the Sentinel program. And I'm going to give it to you right as it's written. The objective of the Sentinel program is to create a program that will enhance our national security posture right now we're dealing with gun violence attacks. We're going to deal with it utilizing veteran military officers commissioned and warrant as volunteers, deputized sentinels. Since 1990, the American military experienced its greatest increase in operations tempo in history, mobilizing and deploying soldiers and sailors and reserve component forces to meet the many obligations around the world. Today, there's over 150,000 troops deployed to over 120 locations in response to contingencies and current threats. Okay, long story short, basically what this is going to do is the plan calls for the purchase outright or initiative to provide a monetary incentive for units to gift to departing officers firearms, similar to the ones that were issued, the ones that they gained proficiency on in training under stressful conditions during military service, basically a 9mm Beretta, and authorized those separating officers to be able to use the firearm carrying privileges of federal law enforcement officers. So basically, God forbid, if somebody encounters a situation where you have a mad gunman, what you can do is if one of these sentinels are in place or if they're mobilized locally, they can come in and try to regulate the situation. Unfortunately, the climate right now is that you don't have people carrying. Concealed carry is not allowed in a lot of places, or they make it next to impossible to even be able to obtain a firearm. That's the reason why Americans are basically at this point victimized. If we're gonna have foster a climate where we're allowing refugees to come over, unvettable refugees, to come over en masse, in droves. We saw the damage that 1, 2, 3 terrorists, 4 maybe, whatever, in Paris. There weren't that many of them. They sure as hell did a lot of damage in Brussels. All it takes is one person with a bomb-making recipe. And it's not the bomb, it's not the, it's not the pressure cooker, it's not the gun, it's not the knife. For God's sakes, anything can be a murder weapon. You get a butter knife at a restaurant. So it doesn't really matter what you do, because at the end of the day, anybody can kill you with anything. So banning guns, the only thing you're doing is taking the ability for people to defend themselves away from them. And actually, I believe it was the Arizona or somebody, the LGBT community, I believe it was in Phoenix or in Arizona, endorsed Donald Trump. Because they realize the Democrats, and listen, this isn't about a candidate, this isn't about Donald Trump, this isn't about anything like that, because everybody knows I was a Cruz supporter. I still support Cruz. I'd still like to see, at the convention, the delegates be able to vote their conscience. And if Donald Trump doesn't have 1237, then go to a second, third, fourth ballot until the Republicans pick their best candidate. But forget about all that for a minute. The fact that the gay community, or a prominent, group of LGBT citizens, understand that their Second Amendment right and the Bill of Rights in general is under attack. For them to have the ability to be able to defend themselves is a priority to them, because they're going to be constantly under attack. Listen, one of the more prominent hate crimes that goes on in this country is when gays, transgenders are targeted. And we have Ted Harvey. Let's see if he comes in. Mr. Harvey, how are you this evening?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I have bad news for you, sir. The show is on, and the show is on live, but we have a technical issue, and I cannot bring you in, unfortunately, into the broadcast. So I did actually preface the fact that we were probably going to have... Oh, yeah, this is my microphone doubled. Yeah, there isn't anything that basically that I can do with it right now. This is going to be something that I'm going to have to fix later. But I would love to reschedule you because I had a great questions regarding your position as the chairman of Stop Hillary PAC, because there isn't anything more important this election season than stopping Hillary. Without a doubt. Listen, I will be in touch with Joshua, and I look forward to having you next week when the technical difficulties are resolved, if you would be so gracious as to accept my invitation. I'm actually going live right now, and for the listeners at home, I'm talking to myself, but I'm going on a rant regarding the Second Amendment, gun rights, and the LGBT community as we speak. I will be in contact, and thank you so much, and I do apologize for the inconvenience to you, sir. We will have Ted Harvey next week talking Stop Hillary. Thank you so much, sir. Alrighty. And another awkward moment in the history of the show, but it's one of those things. You keep it moving, you keep it grooving, and that's how it goes down. But anyway, as I was saying, constantly under attack are people in the LGBT community. And it's about time that they start, and everybody, liberals in general. See, this is the thing. If you need to believe in the Constitution if you feel that you're different from other people. Because the only thing that's ever going to ultimately protect your individuality is the Bill of Rights. And liberals don't seem to get that. And it's funny, the one group of people that live and die by the Constitution, the conservative right, Christians, are the ones that are constantly being attacked by these progressives that want to limit those rights. It's sickening. It really literally makes me sick to my stomach that this is what we have to deal with on a regular basis. Politicizing something as tragic and horrific as this. Oh, if it wasn't for the guns. I'll tell you this much. Back in the 50s, and I actually saw a fantastic meme about this a couple days ago on Facebook. It was actually spectacular. It was a picture of, I believe it was it had to be a high school. Back in the 1950s. Back in the 1950s, high schools taught gun safety. Everyone knew at a moment's notice, God forbid, you needed to defend yourself, you needed to defend your family, you needed to defend your neighbor, you needed to defend the disabled, you needed to defend the incapacitated and incapable of taking care of themselves. You were able to do it. That's what being an American was. Countries would not dare attack the mainland United States because everyone exercised their Second Amendment rights and they appreciated the fact that they had them. I honestly am at a loss. Listen, and actually, you know what? It's kind of good that we have these technical problems today. Because I was actually talking to my daughter prior to the beginning of the show, and she was laughing about my mad rantings, the way I used to host my show when I was on We Are America Radio. Back then, I had more of a monologue-driven show. I didn't have guests. I think I probably had, the entire time I think I was on We Are America Radio, I had one guest, and it was Sabo. I don't recall ever having anyone else other than having Rob Spade, my best friend, as a co-host from time to time. He co-hosted the New World Order episode where I went on and on about Paul Ryan and the omnibus bill, and we went through this particular details of that. And you know what? Speaking of Paul Ryan, I got to give Paul Ryan one of these. And listen, I'm not an establishment guy. I'm not a moderate. I'm a conservative. I really am. A true, to the right, as conservative as they make them. Paul Ryan today said, we will defend the Bill of Rights. We will defend the Second Amendment. And I got to give Paul Ryan for all the ball breaking, because the one thing I give credit where credit is due. I had to give credit to Trump earlier this week, and I said it. I was like, listen, I banged Trump over the head constantly over everything. And you know what? Just because I gave Trump credit for one thing this week, I may be banging him over the head for the same thing next week, because God knows if he'll even keep his position. The freaking king of double talk. I haven't had a good rant on Donald Trump in a while, but I'm not going to do it now. But Paul Ryan, way to go, and way to speak in behalf of the NRA, the Second Amendment, and every American. The Second Amendment is for Democrats too. If you're a Democrat, you have the right, according to however restrictive your state may be, to purchase, train on, carry, maybe not carry out. I know in New Jersey we're very restricted. I mean, you've got to be pretty much a Secret Service agent to be able to carry in the street, but they're disarming Americans. It's causing disorder, disarray. It'll lead to statism. Why don't people see this? The more they take your guns, the easier, the softer a target you are. Import a couple of radicals. Donald Trump hit it on the head. You know what? Credit to Donald Trump. He did hit it on the head. America is being destroyed from within. Is he the solution to our problems? Fuck no. And I think anybody who's a conservative, who's been paying attention, who did the research, shame on you, Trump people, for putting him as the presumptive. He's our presumptive nominee because of you guys. But you know what? He's a lot better than Hillary Clinton. And we'll have on Ted Harvey next week to talk about why we need to stop Hillary Clinton. Totally at a loss. You know what? I'm glad I'm having this opportunity here to kind of just shake my leg. And this is what the Conservarican and Friends was before we got rebranded the Julio Rivera Show #Conservarican. I say we got rebranded like I didn't just come up with it myself. Wow. Just to take a moment though, I mean, the Orlando thing really bothered me because I have people in my family that are part of the LGBT community who I love to death, and they love me, and we may not agree 100% on politics. I might get, ribbed here and there by them. Some of them we just don't even, we won't even approach the, the subject of politics because it makes for uncomfortable dinners. But hearing it unfold and as the information was coming out, it was truly heartbreaking. So many Latinos, too. Not that matters, because I'm American first, but I'm just saying as far as, wow, it's like so many of those people look like, like just relatives of mine, and my cousins, my friends, all, it was really just really devastating and heartbreaking. I have actually some good friends that live in Orlando. Could have been there, wrong time. Who knows? Not everybody that goes to a gay club is actually gay. I'll tell you a story actually. And this has nothing to do with my confession my secret that I said I was going to give away on the show. That was actually just going to be a hook to try to get people to listen. And then I was going to wind up saying something stupid. But whatever. The show is completely off the rails at 10:29 Eastern Standard Time. If you're listening, God bless you. If you hung in with me during the big moment of silence while, Mike Webb was speaking and you couldn't hear him, thank you and God bless. But just a funny story. I have a friend, and she's still a good friend. She's a lesbian. And we would hang out, and I would hang out with her and her friend, her girlfriend, and, some of their gay friends. And I've been in a gay club. I've been myself in a gay club. And you know what? It could have been me in Orlando. Just there, getting shot or getting caught up in that moment. All Americans fight for the Bill of Rights. I mean, listen, the men who wrote that Constitution and Bill of Rights lived under tyrannical government. They went apeshit over a tax on tea. Nowadays, some studies say that as much as 70% or 70 cents out of every dollar we earn goes towards some semblance of taxation, whether it's state tax, property tax, income tax, sales tax. Those stupid universal surcharge nonsense that you see on your phone bill. Everything is a fucking tax. They wrote that Constitution and they wrote that Bill of Rights not to give us rights, but to protect our natural rights. What's a more natural right than the right to defend yourself? To defend yourself against evil. Not random acts of misguided violence. Declared global jihad against the West. These radicals have said in no uncertain terms they want to devour, destroy, obliterate the great Satan. The great Satan, according to their twisted 7th century religion, if you want to call it a religion, is America. We're the worst. We weren't even around in the 7th century. They want to blow Israel off the map. They got their nuclear deal from President Obama that hopefully, and I got to say it, I mean, if Donald Trump gets through the July convention, if he's the presumptive nominee, by all accounts he has 1,237 delegates, or at least 1,237, according to the allocation, which is based on state laws which are not applicable at the national convention. And I will say that till I'm blue in the face. But let's say he comes out of the convention with the delegates in a Tim. Or, every fiber of my being will help him try to get elected. Because at the very least, I hope that we will at least be able to defend ourselves against domestic jihadists under a Trump administration, whereas under a Hillary Clinton administration with a big Second Amendment decision coming up in the Ninth Circuit Court next year, we could be a year away from the Second Amendment being gone. Literally, 1 year away from it. As we used to say in Patterson, shit is getting real. And it's going to get real fast. And you know what? Gay, straight, Christian, Jew, Muslim, no matter what you are, you wanted to be able to defend yourself against violence. So one of our basic God-given rights is to defend ourselves. My name is Julio Rivera. You're listening to the Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican on this Thursday, June 16th, 2016. My first major technical difficulties on Lanterns Radio Network. How it happened, I don't know. We're going to go into our first break now. Thank you for listening, guys. I do apologize. On the other side of the break, we will have a fantastic interview. Listen, I apologize for the technical difficulties. You have to listen to Andrew Marr. Andrew Marr is an American hero. He's part of Warrior Angels Foundation. If you don't know what Warrior Angels Foundation is, go to WAFTBI. Again, that's WAFTBI.org and find out more. They are helping veterans they're helping them reclaim their lives, reclaim their happiness. They're repairing families. They're doing a wonderful service to help veterans that have suffered traumatic brain injuries and those post-traumatic stress syndrome symptoms. And he's going to he breaks it down during the interview. I actually had the great pleasure of meeting both Andrew and Adam Marr, the proponents of Warrior Angels Foundation on yesterday in New York City. I interviewed them in Times Square. This was the second time I've actually interviewed Andrew. I interviewed him, if you were a listener of the show, when we were on We Are America Radio. He was actually one of the best interviews that I had at CPAC. I learned so much. That was like the first time I was made aware of him and his wonderful, noble cause. And God bless him and all the veterans that go through that risk. And they lay it on the line for us. There isn't anything else you could really say but thank you and God bless to someone who'd be willing. Like, I'm a veteran. I was in the Navy. I wasn't in combat. My life was never, I guess you can rationalize it in a sense it was in danger because of the possibility that at any time it could have been, but no. Andrew is an American hero. Combat veterans like him, with what they go through, should be revered. They should never be criticized. They do what so many people that sit around and complain would never really have, the fortitude, the bravery, the heart to actually go out there and do on our behalf, to fight and defend those God-given rights which our Constitution protects. This is Julio Rivera, 1037 on Thursday night.
Find the Lanterns Radio Network on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes.
They can intercept this transmission at any time, so I'll be brief. The fight is here. The time is now. Go behind enemy lines.
Player FM, YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network.
Yeah. Okay, good.
You've got a little bit on the left and right edge above your shoulders.
Okay.
So you should kind of stay in that above the end.
All right, fantastic. All right,
this is the beginning of the interview.
Hi, everyone. This is Julio Rivera of the Julio Rivera Show, and I'm here with Andrew Marr of Warrior Angels Foundation. Andrew Marr is a veteran. He's a hero, American hero, and he's doing a lot to help veterans. And today we're going to ask him some questions so you can get to know him a little bit better. Andrew, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, first of all, Julio, thanks for having me on in Times Square, no less. Pretty cool deal. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Texas playing athletics, football, led to college, played college football. Once that ended, I really felt compelled to enter the military. Felt a sense of duty where other guys were laying it on the line in combat, my age, and I thought, I'm done chasing my own selfish ambitions, so to speak. I think this is the honorable thing to do, the right thing to do. So that led into the Army. Chose specifically to go into Special Forces from there, and that led into my, our career as a Special Forces Green Beret for about 9 years.
And tell me a little bit about your service, the 9 years you spent in the Special Forces.
Yeah, 3 combat deployments, lots of trips to Southeast Asia, training up the different, our allied forces in Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan was all of my combat rotations.
Okay. Now, while you were there, unfortunately, you had a couple of instances where you were injured, correct? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's interesting because it was never an injury that caused us to think, okay, there's something wrong, or we need to go to the hospital, or higher levels of care. So traumatic brain injury is what it was, and it's from just the general life of a soldier or an operator, right? So my specialty was a special forces engineer. So when deployed, I'm an expert in demolitions. And so in and around countless explosions over those 9 years, hundreds if not thousands. It's kind of hard to quantify. So one of my roles was a breacher, and what that means is basically it is getting into denied points of entry. All right, whether it's a door, whether it's a wall, a window, and there's different ways to do that. Mechanical, so there's a lock on there. We can just use a bolt cutter and break it. That's the easy way. Path of least resistance always is what you want to take. But sometimes you have to use explosive charges. So I would make surgical explosive charges to then place at certain spots on those denied points of entry. We get back a safe distance and then, initiate that explosion to go into the house or wherever and do our other jobs there.
And you were doing a lot of door-to-door when you were there?
Yeah, wow. Absolutely. And then to be proficient at that, you have to train in regular scenarios to do that in a real-world application, right? So before I ever did one that was a real-world situation, I had already done hundreds, in training. So just tons and tons of situations where we were exposed to that blast. And again, that's everybody. But what we now know, Julio, is those blast waves that are propagated from that explosion, they move at the speed of sound and move through your body. And what it's shown, what the science has revealed, is that it will actually shake and move your brain back and forth and off the skull, banging off the skull, so to speak, and then actually getting there and doing more damage inside the brain. And by itself, one of them, probably not that big of a deal. Two of them, maybe not that big of a deal. But when you have them repetitive over again over the course of, for me, it was 9 years. Some guys it's more than 20. But that is very damning to the brain because it doesn't have time to heal itself. And so because of that is why I started having issues later on that were stemmed directly from being in that line of fire, so to speak. And I was only knocked unconscious one time in combat. So it wasn't like, it wasn't easy to identify when we were having problems because there was no big significant trauma to me, or so we thought. You know what I mean? I didn't have a cracked cranium, I wasn't missing any limbs. And this is the case with a lot of people right now. And
it's almost like an unseen injury.
It's invisible. It's exactly. Invisible, yeah. Because, like I said, that blast wave is propagated, moves through you, and then what it's doing in your brain is it's altering your brain to function correctly inside. So none of that can be seen, right? So what happened there was after my last deployment, which is in 2013, I didn't start having any issues till 4 months later. And the issues that started was energy issues. Then I started having short-term memory loss. I had trouble speaking normal vocabulary. I would lose words. I couldn't find them all the time, which, was troubling, but not enough for me to say anything. And from there, I started getting migraine headaches, and it would cause my vision to go blurry, and then I would go into double vision every day. And from there, I started having balance problems, and then I started having behavioral and psychological issues. So I had all those physical manifestations first, and then it was depression, and anxiety and panic attacks, rage. And when I started having these feelings of depression and anxiety, it was so foreign to me. I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but I had no reason to be depressed. I loved what I did. Loved my wife. Had 4 children, have 5 children now. Loved my children. Was in the exact thing I wanted to be doing. You know what I mean? We were at the point of our life where we wanted to be. So I couldn't grasp it. I was like, I don't want to be this way, but yet biologically, for some reason, something's happening. I don't know what it is. And I started to think I was going insane.
Now, let me ask you, did you reach out to anyone at that point, or did the Veterans Affairs, or were there any outlets or avenues that you can reach out to at that point?
There is, but you don't want to say anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your role on the team is so important to you, and that when you experience that life and you're in a small team like that with high-performing individuals, you don't want to let anybody down, right? Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about a high-performing team like that is it raises the bar of everybody's performance. Mm-hmm. So everybody's always hitting on all cylinders. So I was like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want anybody to think that I'm not capable of doing my job. Mm-hmm. And our job entails getting everybody home, you know what I mean, to their loved ones. Mm-hmm. So you sit on it until you can't sit on it anymore, mm-hmm. right? So what I did to combat that was I started drinking heavily. Mm-hmm. And that had never been an issue in my life, just drank socially to have a good time, but now I was drinking to get through the day. Mm-hmm. It'd start in the morning until I passed out in the evening. And I started to ask for help, and the problem was that we found in the military medical system is they weren't really trying to find out why these issues were happening, right? And so instead of doing a good detailed analysis to figure everything out, they just started putting me on medications, to treat these symptoms, to treat all the symptoms that we were talking about. The next thing I know, I'm on 13 different medications. And now I'm having even more problems than we started with because these mind-bending psychotropics and narcotics that I was put on had me lose complete touch with reality, And so that is a slippery slope when you have all those symptoms we talked about, drinking heavily, and now throwing mind-altering pharmaceuticals is a recipe for disaster. And that is the exact reason, Julio, we have all these suicides today. That is the cycle of it.
Yeah, and it's insane that instead of looking for a permanent solution to those issues, modern medicine just likes to, as they say, apply Band-Aids to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then eventually you get a gash that's too big. You can't just apply a Band-Aid to it.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you found out through research and a little bit more about what Warrior Angels does for people?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. That was a good, great segue. What our trials and tribulations through that system, we had an awakening, and it was, I came to a crossroads and a decision point, and I was like, I can continue on this path they've laid out for me, and it's gonna kill me, and that's gonna ruin my family, and it's gonna ruin everything I love. And I was told basically, hey, this is the new you, find a way to live within these parameters. And we refused to accept that. I was like, because I never had any solid answers, so we wanted some solid answers. So I started doing my own research and started looking into the scientific literature because I became really interested in why things work for some people and then why things don't work for others, and what is the reason behind that, and why are we doing the things that we're doing specifically in this area of traumatic brain injury. And I got to learn a lot about the brain, the neuroendocrine system, hormones, and how all that is interrelated and responsible for essentially making us who we are, right? So what the research led me to was a doctor out in California, Dr. Marr Gordon. He is the premier neuroendocrinologist in the world, and specifically with treating TBI. And so we were making some waves, checking out different alternative treatments. It got picked up by some different news publications, and he read an article on me and got in touch with me through email. And he said, listen, we've been helping veterans since 2009. I've been treating TBI since 2004. Here's my credentials. Here's the science behind how we treat the underlying condition. And if you're interested, give me a call. We'll talk about getting you on the right track. And so I listened. He sent me a podcast he had done with Joe Rogan. And it was a guy he had on there. One of his patients was a former Navy corpsman. And he was on, when he came to Dr. Gordon, 16 different medications. Wow. Had multiple attempts at suicide and lived a horrible existence. And through this treatment that Dr. Gordon offered, these protocols, Matt he's off all medications. He's back and functioning at a high level. He's screenwriting in LA. He's a screenwriter.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Incredible story. And But what was interesting, Julio, was everything that he was saying, all his symptoms, everything he was going through, was like somebody was looking, like I was looking at myself in the mirror and talking to me. You know what I mean? It was exactly what I was going through. So then to hear Dr. Gordon articulate why and how those symptoms originate and what is the genesis of that was fascinating to me. And what it is that what we know is these blast waves that rock the brain causes two things. It causes the what's called post-traumatic inflammation, which is swelling, and it causes the brain then to be deficient in the hormones that are produced in the brain. When that happens, when those become deficient off, we start to have these declines like I was just talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. So to treat it, we do an objective laboratory test to see if you do have an inflammation and if your hormones are not where they need to be, not the correct physiological levels. And by identifying that, we can identify that that is the root cause of these other cascades of symptoms, right? Mm. So you want to try to follow those symptoms all the way up to the hole in the dam. You know, where is the hole in the dam? Where is the original problem? Underlying condition is what we say. And so identify the underlying condition, and then we treat the underlying condition. And we do it in two phases. Phase one is using natural supplementation to get rid of the inflammation in the brain, the oxidative stressors, the free radicals. And again, it's done through natural supplements.
Now, what supplements in particular?
N-acetylcysteine and a few other ones. But we have a lot of information on our website we'll put out later. Mm-hmm. But so get the brain back to what we call a neuropermissive environment. A way where it can heal, go through the healing process on its own. Because when it has that inflammation, it can't do any of the things that it's intended or needs to do. So get the inflammation gone. Then we address the hormonal imbalances. And if somebody, so the pituitary gland is in the brain, right? That controls 9 hormones, all hormones that are synthesized in the brain. We can say, okay, this person is deficient in this because of the blast wave damage, so we have to put those hormones back in his body, right? Because he needs it, or she needs it to function optimally. And so we replace or replenish whatever they're found to be deficient in, all right? And again, that's through an objective measurement. An objective meaning, hey, this is the data, and there's no opinion about it. It's fact, right? Yeah. So we have the facts. We treat it accordingly, and when you do it in that manner, we have over 1,300 documented cases, TBI cases, of a dramatic improvement exactly like mine.
Wow.
Right? So we have all the scientific literature to support it. Now Dr. Gordon revolutionized his protocols in treating TBI, 1,300 documented cases. We set up the Warrior Angels Foundation specifically to help veterans and service members who think they might have had a TBI or who suffer from post-traumatic stress. And when we do this, when we apply these metrics and these protocols, again, they improve. And now we have over 120 cases through the foundation that are very similar to my story. You know what I mean? And so that's why it's important. That's why I'm so happy we met at CPAC when we did. And meeting other people along the way that have outlets like this so we can put out this information because it's good for a lot of reasons. One, yes, we want to treat the veteran issue, but it is not a veteran issue, this injury. It is it's an issue that affects all of humanity. So our intent is to get the information out so other people can say, oh, okay, I can apply that same thing to my life and also have the improvements. And so that's why we want to get the information out.
So now what's the process as far as of being treated? And how long does it take? And generally, take me through that process for anybody that may be watching that maybe feels that they suffer from those symptoms.
Great question. What you come to our website, www.waftbi.org. All right. If you want to sign up for treatment, you can sign up there. So you go in, you'll fill out our intake form, which gives us this basic information, and then through email, we'll get all the other information that we need to make a correct analysis of where you're at. We'll verify your service. Once we have all those prerequisites, you're then cleared and ready to be funded. All right, so when that happens, we then take that file and we electronically move it to Dr. Gordon's office, Millennium Health Centers, through HIPAA-compliant encrypted software, so everybody knows. And from there, we send a lab test kit to your house, to your geographical location. Our lab's in Florida, so if you lived in New York City, they would send it from Florida, it would arrive in New York City. We then will send a mobile phlebotomist to your house to draw your blood. They will package it, send it back to Florida. They'll get the data, get the results, send those results to Dr. Gordon in California. He processes the information, writes up a detailed analysis and report on your individual case, sends that to you via FedEx and then an email. And then we make planning considerations to bring the two of you together via Skype or some other teleconferencing communication platform, telehealth. And between that platform, you'll have a one-on-one with Dr. Gordon, where he'll go through everything in detail and give you a clear understanding of where these symptoms that you're suffering from originated and what is the root cause, and then 2, how we're going to treat that root cause. And then after that's done, he'll send us, the Warrior Angels Foundation, the invoice. We'll fund it. Protocols will go out that day or the next day, be mailed to your house, and that's how you'll start your protocols. And so we brought world-class care to the veterans or service members wherever they're at, without having to uproot them from their geographical location, without having to send them to a doctor's office, without having to send them to a waiting room or waiting line. And we treat them the way they should be treated, with respect and like they are an individual, because everybody is individualized, so your protocols are individualized based on specifically what you need and what you're lacking. And so
when I guess the phlebotomist will check out and see specifically, because everything in your brain is like, it's all chemicals, and it's all, you can look at it on a chart what you're strong in, what you're not in. So I guess the care, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know how to describe this, but more or less you try to get them to healthy levels hormonally in their brain.
Exactly.
And it's different for each person because everybody's body is different in a sense,
You're
right?
absolutely right. So they have these ranges, and this is really interesting. So there's these reference ranges that they say, okay, an adult male 35 should be in these ranges. But really, those ranges are only applicable to whoever did that study in that very time period. And it's important to know that, because it might say the range references 1 to 10, right? Yeah. And anything at 5 and above is where you need to be. And so if somebody came in at a 5 and they were complaining of all these symptoms, conventional medicine will say, well, you're at a 5, so there's nothing wrong with you. We're saying treat the individual. So he's saying he has all the symptoms. He's at a 5. He's 35 years old. He should be like at an 8. So let's treat him and see what happens. And that's why you need a very well-versed, neuroendocrinologist to do this. But under his care, he can implement these protocols, and then we'll do a follow-up lab in 3 months, see if the levels have raised, and then subjectively ask the person, how are you feeling? So we'll give them a questionnaire, we'll get their feedback, and oh my goodness, we treated him because he was a 5, now he's at a 7.2, and he says he's never felt better in his life.
So this is like true treatment towards a cure.
Right.
Because they're permanently helped after this. Wow.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. It is so encouraging and awe-inspiring to hear that there is an answer out there just like this. And when you think about it, it's logical, but it's not widely accepted right now. But it's outside of the confines of conventional medicine, but very much in the confines of science, and that's important for us.
Now, how is the medical community adapting to this? I mean, are you getting pushback by, I guess, the pharmaceutical industry, or are doctors in general positive about this type of care, or where are people feeling?
In general, if anything is new or different, it's met with resistance, just because it's unknown, and I can respect that. What's encouraging now is last week they had this groundbreaking scientific report came out where they basically have validated the blast waves and what it does to a brain. And for the first time, we have the science where we can truly understand what kind of damage that does. What that report did, what that scientific finding did, was validated everything Dr. Gordon's been saying for the last 12 years. Validated that. And now we're having more and more science, more articles come out. So people will be resistant to it, but they can't be resistant to the facts. Well, they can, but you can either choose to accept the facts or you don't want to. But that's your call. You might look like a moron, but that's up to you. And that's the beauty of the First Amendment. But that's the deal. Yeah, so there is resistance always, just because there's an unknown. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be pursued,
Exactly. Why don't you tell us exactly if anybody wants to donate, because I'm sure the type of treatment obviously is costly. First of all, how are you guys being funded, and where can people donate to?
Yeah. We were funded by private donations from Americans who said, oh, we really get behind a organization that is founded and run by combat veterans that have come up with that are challenging the status quo and have provided a superior alternative. So anybody that is interested in that can come to our website, waftbi.org. We have a multitude of ways people can get involved, doing your own fundraiser. Go to the website if you're interested. We've got a lot of stuff there. It's very cool.
That's waftbi.org.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what's really exciting. The Congressional Budget Office report 2012 issued a report on what the VA spends to pay for TBI and post-traumatic stress, what the taxpayers spend, really. And it's about $15,000 per veteran for that. And that's
per affected veteran.
Right. Yeah, for traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress, on average, according to the CBO 2012 report. So with that, the treatment protocol is medication and psychotherapy. Okay, so it's not treating the underlying condition. People aren't getting better. Our costs are a third of that, of the cost, and they get less expensive as we go on because you require less labs and probably less supplements as you continue to improve. So
because your body adapts to it, and you're able to kind of normalize.
When we can get it back into what we call a neuropermissive environment where the brain can now regenerate and heal. It's going to do the things it needs to do.
Wow.
And we might need to continue the hormones for your lifetime because of structural damage that was there. But again, that's dependent on the individual. We'll find out later just by running tests, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But again, that's why it's encouraging. So we've set up a revolutionary system where we can treat anybody anywhere without a doctor's office, without a waiting line. And we're doing it for a third of the cost. And we are very much the American spirit of, hey, we're not going to complain. We're not going to whine. We're going to figure out a way to do it better, more cost efficient, more time efficient, more effective. And we're going to bring it on a mass scale to everybody who's in need.
All right. Now, have you guys approached, I guess, the military, the United States Armed Forces regarding this? And have you gotten any feedback from them? Are they receptive towards maybe implementing this?
Yeah. We're in talks with both sides, the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. And again, with us being able to show the empirical evidence of what we're doing with treating people, having scientific literature to support it, showing the cost effectiveness of it, that starts to change minds. But what changed more minds is when you hear the stories of other people who's had their lives turned back on, right? So you learn all those things. So yes, we're talks with leadership on both sides of the house, and it is our intent to get these protocols implemented in the DoD, in the VA, by 2020. And by doing that, we can essentially get rid of these problems that we're having from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress.
It's really a shame that the process doesn't move along quicker because, unfortunately, I mean, what are the statistics, as far as veterans right now with the suicide rates and whatnot?
The report that they put out is 22 suicides a day.
22 a day, wow.
That, over 380,000 have been diagnosed with traumatic brain injury. Maybe as high as 25% have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And so those numbers are significant because those are just the cases that people put their hand up and said, I need some treatment or I need something. 10 years ago, we didn't even know about that much about traumatic brain injury at all. So there's a ton of people out there that are suffering that do not know that this is the reason why. You know what I mean? So those numbers are probably higher. So it's a big deal. In America, I think 5.3 Americans live with a permanent disability as a result of traumatic brain injury. So, I mean, it is an issue that affects all of humanity.
Wow.
But there is an answer, and there is hope, and we've proven it. So we come bearing good news and not mongering fear.
No, that's definitely, and this is such a positive. I'd like to try to promote this as much as I can. I'd actually like to link this to my website, actually, to conservarican.com. I'll put a permanent link up there because I think it's important that people know about this and reach out to you as soon as they can, because every moment is precious. I mean, if somebody may want to reach out for help, they may not know how to reach out for help, or you may know somebody who needs this type of help. Please direct them to waftbi.org.
Julio, thank you, man.
I think we're going to cut with that.
About the word games at all?
Now we're good.